Oh, sometimes you feel like some people who just got to be close to the pastor, they'll stumble over their own feet to get close to the bishop and stumble over me to get to the bishop. So, yeah, I deal with that. I have dealt with it. But over time, those relationships, they just dwindle out, I don't even know where they are today. And so I learned not to take it to heart. I grew up in Murphy Homes, not too far from Saratoga and Fremont, where our bishop and pastor, our church was before it burned. I had 3 sisters and 1 brother. It was my mom and my grandmom. We all lived together. We started off in the high rise and we went to the low rise. And I had a great childhood. I didn't know it was called the projects. I was in fun camp, and my mother worked at a recreation center. And I did dance, I did sailing, I played pool, and I did all those things that you do, when you're young at fun camp. And I just had a great childhood. My sisters, they were all, my 2 sisters closer to me, my sister Jerry, she's not as funny as me and my other 2 sisters. So there was a lot of laughter at home. And my grandmother was the best grandmother. She would always play with me. My mom was working all the time. There was no dad in the home. I never knew my dad, and we had a great home life as far as I was concerned. The fact that I never knew my dad or never met him didn't make me feel sad. Years and years ago, I had a thought that it would be something to have known what he was like or what he looked like. The fact that I could be walking in a street and passing him, it would be unbeknownst to me, and just those thoughts came to mind. But I never wallowed in it. I never longed for it. I just thought, it is what it is, and I don't know if he's still living. I don't know if he's deceased, but it doesn't really bother me at all. I grew up in the Whitestone Baptist Church. I went there every Sunday with my grandmother, and my mother was there before she moved to New Psalmist. I was involved in Sunday school, the choir, drama, everything. I was there. Morning service, afternoon service. When we went out, I was with my grandmother all the time. I was always at church. I was singing, I was serving, but I had not accepted Jesus Christ as my Savior. I wasn't a wild child. I tried to fit in, but it didn't work for me because I was different. So I tried the disco, I tried the reefers, but in the end, I was kicking against the pricks, if you will, because at a young age, there was a calling on my life that I hadn't known anything about, nor was I fighting against. I just knew that the Lord was saving me for something. So, but I do remember my conversion experience, which was, to this day, I remember where I was sitting at the Whitestone Baptist Church. I remember what the Lord said to me, and from that day on, I committed to live for Him. My home church, Whitestone, and Bishop's Church, Mount Moriah, were sister churches where we fellowshiped a lot together, and we had joy night services with all the teens quite often. And I noticed him then, and I said to myself, and actually to my girlfriend, I gotta meet this guy. I really want to meet him. And it was shocking to me to say that because, as I stated, I really wasn't into relationships. I never longed for it, but there was just something in me that said out of my mouth, I'm going to meet him. And so I walked up to him after a service at Mount Moriah. He preached that Sunday, and we were there, a girlfriend of mine. And I greeted him after service, as they used to do every time the preacher, after service was over. The preacher would stand at the pulpit, and people would come and shake the preacher's hand. And I shook his hand, and his voice was so high. He was like preaching, and God said, and God said. And then when he talked to me, he was like, "How you doing?" So I was like, "How you doing?" And so the acquaintance started there. When we were dating and we were engaged to be married, we talked about what we aspire to do, and Bishop shared with me years ago at that time that he knew that he would one day be a pastor. And, you know, when you're 18, 19 years old and you hear these things, well, speaking for me, I was like, that's nice. You want to be a pastor? Okay. You know, I've been in church all my life. Ain't nothing to it to me. So we get married at 22 years old, and we have a beautiful wedding. 2 weeks after we got from our honeymoon, I remember vividly, friends of ours were at our apartment, and the phone rang while they were assembling our dining room table on the floor. The phone rang, and it was the chairman of our deacons board saying that my husband was elected unanimously to be the pastor. And so I was like, yay, nice. I mean, okay, it's a nice thing. So I didn't think at all the magnitude of what that is. You know, I'd been in church all my life, and I'd seen my pastor, and I grew to love my pastor growing up, but I'd never been close and seeing the ins and outs of pastorate. So I didn't know the magnitude of the challenge it would be. And I never feared what it could be. So I just thought it was a good thing. And so I knew he was an honorable man, and he said he knew that's what it would be, and he shared that with me. So, lady, I pride myself on being a lady. I like to sit slouched and careful, not careful, but I like to be comfortable, but I know how to represent, and I know how to be poised, because I believe that a lady should know how to conduct herself at all times. I have a saying of my own that a lady always knows when to leave. Actually, it's from a movie I saw. Cicely Tyson said it, actually. And I've gravitated to that for years, that I make it a point not to be the only lady in a room full of men. I don't care how comfortable I am with them. I just know that sometimes that a lady should know to excuse herself at times, unless she's been invited to address a group of men, which I have not been asked to do before, but I would have no problem. I would know the assignment. But as a rule, I think that a lady should be mature enough to assess her environment and conduct herself accordingly, because we are representatives of Christ, male and female, but specifically for ladies, we are to carry ourselves differently from a man, in that we have a gentle, whether we're strong or not, or confident, there should be a gentleness about us that says, lady is our title if we are nothing else but a lady. My individual experience as First Lady here at the church is, sometimes it's a lonely spot, although I could name a dozen people, more than a dozen, who I know genuinely love me. But then there's a part where they know that I'm married to the shepherd of the house. And then there's always a segment where people might not be free to share some things, or they may be apprehensive to express themselves the way they wish they could because they feel that I might tell the pastor. So that comes in my mind sometimes where I have to not guard myself, but just be mindful that people are guarded sometimes because I'm connected to a holy man of God and I'm holy, and people know by now they can't talk to me any kind of way because I don't like foolishness. But that could be a lonely place where all early on, I had a problem with a lot of eyes on me. I'm not one for a lot of attention. I like to cut up. I like to have fun. I love to make people laugh, but it's not for a stage, if you will. I'm a fun-loving person, so knowing that eyes are on me all the time, I had to talk myself up to it's like, okay, just get over it. It is what it is. Maybe they're not even looking at you. They might be looking at the fixture on the wall. I don't know. I'm just saying. So I'm trying not to make it all about me. But the reality is a lot of people look at first ladies because of the stigma that has come with first ladies for years, and some good stigmas and some not so good. So I just had to deal with trying to make sure I don't lose myself because of the environment I'm in. Sometimes you feel like some people who just got to be close to the pastor, they'll stumble over their own feet to get close to the bishop and stumble over me to get to the bishop. So I deal with that. Have dealt with it. But over time, those relationships, they just dwindle out. I don't even know where they are today. And so I learned not to take it to heart. Some people, they see the anointing on his life, and rightfully so. And some people just don't have a good balanced life, and so they don't know that we're a package deal. Like there are some people who might speak to me and not to Bishop because of the anointing on his life, and that's not good either. So and I've seen that. I just know that people are funny, and some people don't mean to be the way they are sometimes as it relates to giving more attention to the bishop than me. Not that I'm craving it, not that I think I need it or should have it, because the weight and the responsibility and the need for help for the bishop is so much greater than mine. So I appreciate those who give him the attention that he needs. But there were times where people would just do X, Y, and Z, A through Z for the bishop, and it's like, okay, so did you need something? I never had an insecurity about our church being predominantly filled with women. I trusted the integrity of my husband, and I was secure in myself. I know that we had a loving marriage, and I know there are some women who are enamored by pastors. I grew up hearing that some crazy woman would say, I want to marry a pastor. Anywho, I knew of that, but I never had to walk around saying, I got to watch my husband, I got to watch this woman. That wasn't my testimony. The advice I would give a younger woman who's called into pastorate to have a husband who's a pastor, a young pastor, is to make sure that you have communication with your husband, that you are secure within your own marriage, and know that if your husband is a man of God, that he would reverence the relationship he has with his own spouse, and that he wouldn't prostitute the gift that God has given him to minister to a church, whether predominantly females or not. And that you wouldn't forfeit your chance to be blessed in your own ministry, worrying about what another woman is doing.
Can you hear the sound? Can you hear the sound of these armies marching on the ground, on the ground? This is the revolution. Fire, fire. This city's on fire, fire. This city's on fire, fire, fire. Hearing the witching hour come down from your tower. Don't you know the city's on fire? You have got to get out now.
The fire experience was just, it was rough to process because I still couldn't understand. It was like I saw it, I was there, I was in the midst of the crowd, in front of the burning edifice, but yet it was like, you know, the news reporters were there and the crowd was gathering from the neighborhood, and it's just, it was an out-of-body experience, and so I just, it's hard to explain, but I just was living in a surreal moment, if you will. That I wasn't in shock, I was just, for lack of a better term, moving through it and just taking it in, but it hadn't sunk in yet. So I remember vividly getting out of my car and getting the call that the lightning struck the steeple and the fire was consuming the church. And I went in the store processing the information because they were asking me if I saw it on the news. And I came back to my car realizing my car was still running. Because I just, it was like a living dream, if you will, so surreal. And then finally got in the car and drove to the church, or as close to it as I could, and I located my husband, who was still being the pastor, if you will, hurting, crying, but still leading and gathering our congregation who had traveled to the site, still exuding strength and determination to lead. So I saw that he had strength in his weak moment, and I just resolved that I could be strong for him as well, because I really appreciate that he could express himself, because I always say tears are anointed and they're a gift from God and they are our release. And so when he can release and still function, he didn't kirk out, he didn't break down, he wasn't sitting on the curb somewhere, which I could quite honestly applaud him if he did, because it was a traumatic experience. So him standing strong, even in the midst of it, helped me to stay strong. But after the day after, it was like a funeral experience, if you will, because we had leaders come to the house and it was just so solemn, and that was, rough.
If a new First Lady is to view this, I hope she sees that God can use anybody. Me being from the projects and working in the church, teaching Bible study, Bible study to little kids and not claiming Jesus for myself, and God still didn't strike me down. And then growing up and learning to love him, and then meeting a man after God's own heart, and coming into ministry, and just trusting God that he wouldn't let me lose myself, and knowing the personality that I had and still have, where I love to laugh, I love to have fun. I won't compromise my fun for being sanctified, if you will. I'm still sanctified in my fun. Not that I'm a holy roller, but I am determined to represent Christ at all costs and all times, and I think God honors that. I know he honors that, and so that this journey in the First Lady role, it's just been a growth, steps for me, and season upon season, ups and downs, some highs and some real lows, but yet I can honestly say that I didn't lose myself in the midst, and for that I am grateful for. Although my husband tried to change me, he wanted me to wear all these hats and sit on the first row, he quickly came to himself, and that freed me up a lot. So I would say that prayerfully you have a spouse, a man of God, a pastor who loves you for you, and knowing that you have gifts and talents that you would use at your own pace, and that the both of you could enjoy your journey, and not just him enjoying his and you enjoying yours, but that the two of you could have some common ground in ups and downs, and still come out with a smile on your face.
I love your voice.